Today we are rearranging formulas. So we're going to be doing some rearranging formula practice. So we are going to do two examples together. Our first one says isolate L by rearranging. Isolate just means get it by itself. And I have the formula V equals LWH, so length times width times height, divided by 2. This is actually the formula for the volume of a triangular prism. So when you are isolating, you are trying to get something by itself. So we want to take that L, I like to highlight it so I know where it is, and we want to try to get L all by itself. So this rearranging a formula is just like solving an equation. And when I am rearranging, I try to use order of operations in reverse. So order of operations, we use the short form BEDMAS to help us remember. And if I do that backwards, that is SAMDEM. So what I'm going to do is start by trading the sides of my formula. So you don't have to do this, but I find that people do better if the letter they're isolating for is on the left-hand side of the equation. So I'm going to rewrite this as length times width times height divided by 2 equals V. All I did was just trade the two sides to make this a little easier for us. So you want to ask yourself, how are all of these things interacting with L? So W is being multiplied by L, H is being multiplied by L, and 2 is, we're dividing L by 2. So we've got two things that are being multiplied and one thing that's got some division there. So really, multiplication and division have the same priority. It doesn't matter which one you try to eliminate first. So I would probably start with the division. So to cancel out that divide by 2, I would multiply by 2. And what you do to one side, you do to the other. So I would get length times width times height is V times 2, which would just be 2V. We are still trying to get L by itself. So I notice that I am multiplying by W and H. The opposite of multiplying is dividing, so I would cancel them out by dividing. Because it's all multiplication, I have a choice. I could either divide by H and then divide by W, or I could just divide by both W and H at the same time, which is what I am going to do. So I'm going to say that L, length, equals 2V, and then I like to write my division as a fraction, so divided by both W and H. So this formula is for the volume of a triangular prism. So if you had the volume and you had the width and you had the height and you were trying to solve for the length, rearranging the formula is actually really helpful, especially if you have really large numbers that you're working with. Sometimes it's not a bad idea to rearrange the formula first and then sub your numbers in. So rearranging formulas actually can be really helpful in making it easier to do calculations where you're trying to find a specific letter in your formula just to get that by itself. Okay, we have one more question. It says isolate R by rearranging, and our formula is A equals pi R squared. This is the formula for the area of a circle. So we are trying to get the R by itself. It is on the right-hand side of the formula, which is okay, but I like to have it on the left-hand side, so I'm just going to trade the two sides. I'm not changing the order of anything. I'm just switching what side they're on. So I'm going to do pi R squared equals A. And we are rearranging to isolate for R. So I'm going to look at what's going on this side. I have an exponent and I am multiplying by pi. So when you are rearranging, if I'm doing my reverse order of operations, I notice that multiplication should get moved before exponents. So I need to start by canceling out that multiplication by pi, and then I'll deal with the square. So to cancel out a multiplication with pi, I would divide both sides by pi. So I would get R squared equals A divided by pi. I always like to write my division as a fraction. And then to cancel out a square, we would do a square root. So I would get r equals, and you want to make sure that that square root goes all the way down to the bottom of that fraction. So it's a divided by pi. So it's the square root of a divided by pi. So when you're rearranging formulas, just always think about your order of operations. Always think about how the different parts relate to your variable, right? Are we adding with r, subtracting with r, multiplying with r, dividing with r? And then just do them in the opposite of order of operations. So good luck on your practice today. That's it for our lesson.